Good morning, everyone. It's Monday, December 28th. From the San Antonio Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. You can expect some showers and a high of 74 degrees in San Antonio today. President Donald Trump has signed a stimulus and spending bill into law, averting a Tuesday government shutdown. His decision to back down and sign the measure will release $900 billion in stimulus funds into the economy that had been held up for nearly a week. A San Antonio man who owned a chain of hospice businesses bought a Porsche and Spurs season tickets with proceeds from a $150 million fraud scheme, using chaplains and doctors to persuade healthy patients they were incurable and needed his company's services. And now let's move on to our top stories for the day. Less than 2 weeks into COVID-19 vaccine distribution in Texas, some rural hospital administrators are experiencing delays and difficulties securing the shots for their staff. Only half of Texas's rural hospitals have made the list for the early shipments, even though rural communities have been among some of the hardest hit. Even before the virus tore through communities, the state already grappled with shortages of health providers, particularly in rural swaths of Texas. Rural Americans are also more likely to be older, live with disabilities, and lack health insurance. Health policy experts feared the pandemic could further widen the healthcare gap between rural and urban areas. Marina Starleaf-Reichert takes a closer look in her latest article. Laura Riggs says there's no question about whether her 94-year-old mother will be getting the COVID-19 vaccine. She's ready, they're both ready. It's been an arduous year for Riggs' mother, Freddie Riggs, and other nursing home residents. I know they're trying to bring back some normalcy for the residents with some activities resuming, Laura Riggs said of Elmcroft of Windcrest, the assisted living facility on the northeast side where her mother lives. Laura and her mother are hopeful that as soon as next month, after the vaccinations and as the situation improves, Freddie might be able to safely leave the facility for an outing. And maybe the huge sports fan could even go to a game. But first, they have to get those vaccines. Jeremy Blackman, Laura Garcia, and Emily Foxhall have that story over at expressnews.com. When Brooke Army Medical Center began vaccinating personnel late last week for the coronavirus, two doctors say it didn't inform them through formal military channels or prioritize healthcare workers who were more likely to come into contact with people positive for the virus. What happened next, both of the BAMC doctors said, was an unimaginable free-for-all. Physicians said they expected better organization and a focus on the healthcare providers most at risk of contracting the virus, a category called Tier 1. They say they discovered that anyone could get a shot, not just frontline healthcare workers, particularly those in BAMC's Level 1 Trauma Center, where some personnel have been exposed to and sickened by COVID-19. Head over to expressnews.com to check out that full story. Throughout the fall semester, Bexar County teachers reported grave frustrations with the way school reopenings were being handled, as well as anguish about the draining, high-risk, low-reward situation in which they and their students found themselves. The severity of these concerns has varied from district to district and even campus to campus. But as a group, teachers have had to contend with shifting safety protocols, battles with administrators, overwhelming workloads, and the expectations that their students keep pace with predetermined achievement standards, all amid the pandemic. For some teachers, the adjustment has been so tough that they plan to resign. For many others, in-person instruction has left them dismayed, struggling to grapple with their newfound role and the effects of the school year will have on them and their students. Andres Picon has more on this story over at expressnews.com. Head over to expressnews.com to check out our interactive map of San Antonio coronavirus testing sites that don't require a doctor's referral. You can find the site closest to you by entering your address, selecting a location to find out more, including if it's appointment only or if it has drive-through testing. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more inside of your Express News subscription. After 3 days of no coronavirus updates because of Christmas, city officials Sunday reported 4,426 new coronavirus infections since Wednesday, and 1,000 people in local hospitals, up from 945. The total number of cases here has surpassed 110,000. A pair of headstones bearing Nazi swastikas were removed from Fort Sam Houston National Cemetery, the final chapter in a long controversy over whether the grave markers were historical artifacts worth preserving or emblems of hate that should be destroyed. SeaWorld San Antonio will stay open on weekends this winter instead of closing after the holiday season as it did in the past, in an attempt to recover from the damage COVID-19 inflicted on the theme park this year. Bexar County Judge Nelson Wolf said Saturday he has encouraged Spurs sports and entertainment officials to hold off for a while on letting fans return to the county-owned AT&T Center for Spurs games. According to a recently published report from Disability Rights Texas, Northside and Northeast ISD follow a statewide trend in restraining Black and special aid children at disproportionate rates. Recognizing the need for liberalizing the rules and finding ways of keeping women in uniform as they return to work after childbirth, the Air Force has instituted a workplace makeover for women who are back on duty and nursing their babies. Brian Kyle Frizzell II, a Texas State graduate, is filming a documentary about an apartment fire in San Marcos that was deliberately set, killing 5 people, including his sister Haley, and hopes to have it done by July 20th, the 3rd anniversary of the fire. Greg Jefferson writes, quote, San Antonio wants its share of the wealth spawned by the tech economy, but worker bee jobs seem to be our lot. Check out Greg Jefferson's full column over at expressnews.com. The coronavirus pandemic has not only made people sick and afraid, but it's made the rich richer and the poor poorer at a never-before-seen pace, writes Chris Tomlinson in his latest column. The new county lockup doesn't have a big enough property room and will only hold a few items for an inmate. Anything else goes to the City of San Antonio's holding facility, where prisoners get hit with the city's $25 charge. That fee is getting new attention. Find out why over at expressnews.com. The State Commission on Judicial Conduct has admonished a Bexar County visiting judge after investigating a complaint that he used the word wetback and a comparable slur in Spanish to describe undocumented immigrants in court. The Texas Attorney General's office spent nearly twice as much time working on voter fraud cases this year as it did in 2018, logging more than 22,000 staff hours, yet resolved just 16 minor prosecutions, half as many as 2 years ago, according to records. Expansion of the U.S. Department of Agriculture's food assistance program for families would go a long way towards alleviating the strain on food banks, the Express News editorial board writes. Check out the full editorial over at expressnews.com. With the fall semester over, some rural superintendents have eliminated remote learning programs even as the coronavirus pandemic surges. Take a closer look at the situation in Hondo, Petite, and other area school districts over at expressnews.com. This week in history, on December 29th, 1925, San Antonio recorded 1 inch of snow shortly after Christmas as a cold front swept through the nation. A story reported on the front page of the Express News reads, quote, After being enveloped in a thin mantle of snow, San Antonio established a record 10 degrees at 8 a.m. Monday. The coldest since 12 degrees was reached on January 10th, 1918. Tuesday will see another minimum of around 20 degrees with cloudy to unsettled weather, followed with moderating temperatures. Charles Edward Chuck Yeager became a legend as the first to break the sound barrier in 1947. Profiled in the book and movie The Right Stuff, he was idolized by NASA's original astronauts but never became one himself and didn't regret it. I have no bones, he told the San Antonio Express News about not making space. We have his thoughts in the twilight of his life from an extensive interview in 2011. Plenty of pepperoni and sausage were consumed, but we discovered pizza that went up and down the flavor spectrum, from al pastor to dessert varieties and everything in between, with crusts that range from a cracker-like crunch to a classic deep dish Chicago. Head over to expressnews.com to check out the definitive list of the best pizzas and pizzerias we've tried in our year-long quest for pizza perfection. Roll into the new year at a local EDM concert complete with pod seating because, COVID. 2021 is right around the corner, so out with the old and in with the new, like new spices, new vent hood filters, and newly sharp knives. Motel Fried Chicken, a new San Antonio source for buttermilk and herb brine chicken sandwiches, will open for business next month in the 5 Points neighborhood. Lee's boys soccer team is eager for a second shot at redemption after a heartbreaking title loss in 2019 and a COVID-shortened 2020 season. Read our full high school soccer preview over at expressnews.com. And that's all for today. This was your Express Briefing for Monday, December 28th. My name is Luis Vasquez. Please consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast inside of your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful day, everyone.